Okay, good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, April 11th meeting of the Placerville City Council. We are going to start the 4 p.m. Part of this meeting, which is closed session, and we have two items for closed session. Item one is conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation. This is in regards to receipt of an email from Julie Robinson alleging a Brown Act violation. And then item two is conference with legal counsel for anticipated litigation. And this is in regard to a guest column written by Mike Owen in the Mountain Democrat alleging a breach of contract with the city by the city in the Farm Trails contract. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and open up public comment for the closed session for item one or item two.
Hello.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Why has everybody missed the fun, including that little piece there? Thank you for your dedication as public servants. I was asked to be here, so just to give you like credentials, my brother-in-law is retired county counsel for a county, obviously, and my sister's retired as research attorney for the appellate division, all in San Diego. So I think I understand the lawyerly perspective. I have a BA in public administration, training in parliamentary law, as well as training in the open meeting law, so I think I understand that perspective. So I'm sharing with my years and years too many of experience that I'm seeing a tendency from elected bodies to overuse, overreact to the cure and correct, and this is a new one. You know, Placerville's you guys break things, not break things. You go first. There we go. I've never seen a reaction to a column that you move into closed session. So I know you're going to go into it. I'm here to urge you to consider, my joke with everybody is Placerville is a little city that could, because you are such a collaborative group with your community and all the different things that you're trying to do with this smaller tax base. So I urge you in this closed session to try to find a way to move out of litigation, which is adversarial, and find a way to be collaborative and cooperative. I'm sure you're all aware there's tons of controversy. I urge you to do two things. Listen to all that controversy, which I'm sure you're doing, and then come back and report an action that's not adversarial. My encouragement to you is to try to have one more agenda item where everybody that's out there can come in and dialogue with you, and you can direct your awesome staff to give you other options, address some of the concerns with your action so that we all get back into the collaborative model. Thank you for taking my input. I won't be here for the regular meeting. I have to go sell Placerville to the Highway 50 Association, and it's going good.
Thank you, Leo. Appreciate the comments.
Bye-bye.
Mayor Saragosa, we also have two other public comments that were submitted. One is from Ruth Michelson. She submitted an email. And we have one from Melinda Velasco, submitted a written comment letter on this item.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Seeing no other public comments, we'll go ahead and close it, and we will adjourn into closed sessions. Thank you. All right, thank you, everybody, and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Placerville City Council. Will everybody please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay, thank you everybody for being here this evening. Let's go ahead and have roll call, please.
Councilmember Clarici will be noted as absent this evening. Councilmember Gottberg? Here. Councilmember Yarbrough?
Here.
Vice Mayor No?
Here.
Mayor Saragosa?
Here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I am still dealing with the after effects of a long cold and cough, so my voice is probably not going to last the whole meeting, so I've kindly asked the Vice Mayor to lead today's meeting so I can save my voice. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Vice Mayor, so thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, so first we'll do report out from closed session.
Thank you. The
I took it out of order.
That's okay. The council did meet in closed session today on 2 items. The council received 3 public comments in advance in meeting in closed session. On item number 1, the council concluded that there was no Brown Act violation, but has still decided to hold another meeting on the issue of the farm trails to allow for further public comment. On item number 2, there is no reportable action.
Okay, great. We will move on to number 3, ceremonial matters. 3.1 is a proclamation recognizing April 2023 as Child Abuse Prevention Awareness Month, and I will read that proclamation, which is why I got passed, I think. All right. Whereas, our children are the most valuable resources and will shape the future of the city of Placerville and El Dorado County, and whereas all children deserve great childhoods and should be raised in healthy, nurturing homes, free from abuse and neglect. However, abuse and neglect continue to be a serious problem affecting every segment of our community, and finding solutions requires input and action from everyone. And whereas in 2022, there were 448 reports of abuse and/or neglect in the city of Placerville made to El Dorado County Child Protective Services, of which 202 were investigated and 37 were found to be substantiated. And whereas those statistics are part of a county-wide 2022 reports of abuse and/or neglect were made to El Dorado County Protective Services in 2022, where 2,012 reports of abuse and/or neglect were made, of which 918 were investigated and 163 were found to be substantiated. And whereas child abuse and neglect can put a child's stress system permanently on high alert and prime the brain for future mental health issues. Experiences of physical abuse and neglect early in life can become a cycle and may be passed down through generations. Children who grow up exposed to violence may consider it to be acceptable. Children who have experienced abuse are 9 times more likely to be involved in criminal activities. And whereas over 60% of Californians report experiencing at least one adverse childhood experience, ACE, before the age of 18. Approximately 1 in 4 Californians reported having 3 or more ACEs. Reducing the number of ACEs can drastically lower the risks of long-term health and wellness issues, allowing children to grow into healthy and productive adults. And whereas the 2 major risk factors leading to child abuse and neglect, family isolation and stress, have been experienced by our families in ways never imagined in recent years, from the lasting effects of isolation during the pandemic, the unprecedented evacuations and loss of homes during massive wildfires, and extended winter storms and power outages in our community, and the pressure of relentless inflation. And whereas our county has undertaken the development of a comprehensive county-wide child abuse prevention plan over the last 20 months. Community stakeholders, including the Title IV-E agencies and the voice of those with lived experience in our county, have shared and studied data and trends that affect families and children in El Dorado. This comprehensive county-wide child abuse prevention plan will continue to expand and adapt to invest in primary and secondary prevention of child abuse locally, and, page 2, whereas the City of Placerville and the Placerville Police Department are fully invested in partnering with the El Dorado County Child Abuse Prevention Council to bring awareness of this issue and highlight prevention activities in our community. And whereas preventing child abuse is everyone's responsibility. Even though the City of Placerville is made up of many different families, we are all part of one community. Our community must make every effort to promote programs and activities that create strong and thriving children and families, and whereas we have a role to play to stand up, speak out, and create communities where every child in the City of Placerville and in all El Dorado County has the opportunity to reach their full potential. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Placerville does hereby proclaim the month of April 2023 as Child Abuse Prevention Month, and urge all residents to come together to building caring connections, supportive environments, and positive experiences for children and families. Okay. Is Dina Santana here? Great. Do you want to come to the podium and say a few words?
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Deanna Santana. I'm the Child Abuse Prevention Council Coordinator for El Dorado County, which is a Board of Supervisors committee, and I have with me Charlene Hernandez, who's our council chair this year. And we want to thank the City Council for bringing this proclamation forward, for partnering with us. We want to thank the police department for partnering with us last year and then continuing this year. We actually were able to use the model of partnering with the police department in Placerville to start to build a relationship with the police department in South Lake Tahoe and duplicate some of the efforts that we've done. And also, we're starting with the El Dorado County Sheriff's Office, which all started because the city of Placerville started that. The proclamation mentions the countywide prevention planning process, and it is the first time that there is actually an effort at the state to fund primary prevention. So that's prevention. That's funds that we can use for our entire community. Because we all know that every family is at risk of child abuse or neglect if given the right set of circumstances and not having the right tools in their toolbox at the time that they're under stress. So thank you very much for tonight, and thank you for your continued partnership.
Great. The mayor will come bring you the proclamation.
Can I get somebody to take a picture? All right.
Beautiful smiles. Nice. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. We'll move on to 3.2 now, proclamation declaring the week of April 9th through 15th, 2023 to be National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. And whereas emergencies can occur any time that require police, fire, or emergency medical services, and whereas when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. And whereas the safety of our first responders is dependent upon the quality, accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephone into the Placerville Police Department Communication Center. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services, and whereas public safety telecommunicators are the single vital link from our police officers by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them information, and ensuring their safety. And whereas public safety telecommunicators of the Placerville Police Department have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of patients, and whereas each dispatcher has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their job in the past year. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of Placerville, the City Council of the City of Placerville declares the week of April 9th through the 15th, 2023, as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in Placerville in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our city and citizens safe. Great. Chief, do you want to step?
Have Commander Maciel come up. That falls within his division. They know how much I love them. And every day for me is a celebration of the effort and work they put in.
Yeah, is this thing on? I'd like to thank you guys for this recognition. Behind me are three of our team members. They're the faces that are never seen, but the voices that are always heard. They are the ones that answer the call and the first person that people in distress talk to. So it takes a special person to do this job, and we are blessed to have a great team. This is Lisa Magnuson, Tiffany Perez, and Christina O'Brien. They're just three of our 5 members. So thank you guys. We appreciate it.
Keep it short and sweet. Thank you so much for recognizing us. We adore our community. We love coming in to work, and we really appreciate the support.
We really appreciate you being there for us.
Yeah, thank all of you. Thank you for keeping our streets and our safe, for all the work that you do. So we really appreciate all of it. Thank you.
Did you take pictures?
Sort of. Oh, all right.
Yeah. Yeah, get down there, Mayor.
Over your job.
Excellent. Very nice. Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Okay, we'll move to item 5, adoption of the agenda, and I believe there's a change that needs to be made.
Yes, Vice Mayor, we would like to pull item 12.1 from the agenda.
All right. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with and pulling item 12.1.
A second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Passes unanimously. We will move to announcements and presentations to the public. Brief comments by the City Council. We'll start with David.
I have none at this time.
Okay. Cool.
I attended the Women's Fund ballot showcase and learned about what a number of the nonprofits in our community are doing. It was really great.
Nothing for me today. Thank you.
I'll say Saturday, several of the department heads and staff members, we went out and did some graffiti patrol, painting, and scrub work. So thank you to Chief Wren, Dave Warren, Regina, Cleve Morris, and Regina. We had a... Also Regina. No. Rebecca. I'm sorry. Always fun to do those things and chip away at making our city better, so thank you all. Okay, it is not yet 5:30, so let's go ahead and move to 6.3, the presentation on the city marketing program through El Dorado County Chamber of Commerce. Thanks, Jody.
Thank you. Hi there. Jody Franklin, Director of Tourism for the El Dorado County Chamber of Commerce. And I just wanted to kind of check in, give you what we've done so far for the program. There we go. No, that's too far. There we go. Okay, just kind of a quick recap because I know we've got some newbies. So October 2021 to October 2022, it's actually September 30th, but you get it. We had a contract with the city for about $50,000 and that was out of the recovery money. And this is kind of just a quick overview of what we did for that. We created 639 images that you now have access to, 7 videos, 10 graphics, and it covered all over the city and quality of life as well as tourism in there. Also, produced 5,000 2 times a year of the downtown map. That was something that even the smallest stakeholders could participate in. I think the buy-in was like $75, so kind of leveraged the funding that you're using for promotions with their own funding, and anybody that's in business could pretty much afford $75. That was for the downtown map. We facilitated media visits, developed Placerville content, Placerville-specific content, and maybe not the most important, but probably the most important, created a Placerville consumer opt-in database. So with all the changes that are going on as far as privacy settings and all that, that's super important to you to be able to have, basically own these people that say, I want to hear from you, because it's going to be increasingly more difficult to attract them once the cookies completely go away. Excuse me. So then that lasted until October 2022. So the next contract we had for you, the current contract we have with you, was December 2022 through June 2023. And that's just for 7 months. And what we aimed for on that is to keep that momentum going, not just to drop them like a hot potato if they never hear from you again for Placerville-specific content. And so, you know, they would wonder what's going on here. So we wanted to keep the momentum going, and but we had less funding. This is the scope of work. We developed that, managed that database. We did email marketing quarterly, and basically we just repurposed the content that we had already developed the year before, mix it up and put it back out there, feed it across channels, whether it's social media, email, digital, whatever. And then we wanted to redo that Main Street map because there's not anybody doing it actually if we don't. Super important. And then provide visitor information in and out of market, and then also measure the have a measurement system in place on how everything is being affected and how well we're doing. That costs $15,000 for those 7 months, which is about $2,142 a month. Okay, so December, like I said, November we were dark. We didn't have a contract. December, we were like, got the okay, so we wanted to hit it hard and get that shop local and get those people thinking about shopping here rather than someplace else. So we did a lot in December. We had a Main Street 60-second video that went through most of December, and that was basically, you know, a video we did the year before, repurposed it, got more mileage out of it. We also did a holiday video that was just 20 seconds. That was created the year before. We put it back out there. And the cost of the through plays, that's how you measure it, is if they watched all the way through, whether they saw it, whether they did something about it, and then watched it all the way through. So that was for December. December also, we had the Placerville gift guide. That was that was posting and content that we put out through the email to your database and others to try to convert them to, if they were visit El Dorado already, we want them to really want Placerville content as well. So that was through the month of December as well, and got some good metrics off of that. We had a shop local campaign. We had a small town charm, and rediscover the magic. So those are all, you know, kind of content areas that we sell Placerville in. So whether it's Gold Rush history, small shop local, you know, discover the holidays, whatever that is, we kind of repurpose all that happened in December. And then in January and February, we went through kind of history on one hand, and then and what to do, like the best way to make a weekend in Placerville. So those were the content areas for that. Got some great engagement on that as well, especially considering the weather during that time. You know, I don't know who was thinking about traveling up there, but evidently some people were. And so we got some great engagement, although, you know, the weather might have played a part in that. This is one we most recently, and this is our data now is through March, the end of March. Most recently, we put this video out, but we targeted, same video we've created before, but we kind of repositioned it and targeted at San Jose and Reno. So San Jose, we've recently got data. We the chamber partnered with El Dorado County Economic Development and Transportation to buy into this platform, the software platform, that we get like 30 different data points put into this and then fed back to us. So we can chop up this data in any way we want, which for kind of a data geek like me, it's really exciting. But Placerville can benefit off of that, which is kind of interesting because when I cut up the data for where's the low-hanging fruit for El Dorado County, the western slope of El Dorado County, most of it was it's 100% was pointing towards the San Jose area, that DMA, that marketing area, because they use Highway 50 to go to Tahoe, South Lake Tahoe, and that's who we want to get off the freeway, spend some money here. So for El Dorado County in general, that was the low-hanging fruit. For Placerville, it's a little bit different. My next slide's going to share that, but we got that information and we put put this video off in San Jose and Reno, which is more costly. So you could see the cost per result is like $2, over $2, which some of those others cost per result was down in like cents. They're like 1 cent, 2 cents. Usually we kind of draw a 60 to 80 mile around Placerville to market to that area. And in this case, we drew that line a little farther out. So it cost a little more, but we got a lot of male engagement, 67% male engagement, 32% female engagement. And we've got a lot of impressions, so it turned out pretty well. We just kind of wanted to test that and see what that might look like for Placerville. So then this is a visitor guide ad that we put in the California Visitor Guide. We paid for this through that recovery money last year, and we put it in the California Visitor Guide, which just launched in 2023. So from that, people can either come toward the website, the Placerville section of the website, they can download that map that's on there, or they can take another step, which is kind of the third hardest step, and request a map to be sent to them. And that's 33 people in just, less than a month or about a month's time requested for that map to be sent to them. So that's pretty good results, and that'll continue on through this year. The next edition doesn't come out till January. So we'll still be giving away those maps, which is all the more important to have those maps to give away. Okay, this is a little bit of information around a database. Visit El Dorado, our general database is 11,000. And I didn't really look at the stats before I left, but most of that is out of the county. I would say maybe 20%, maybe less than that, are inside the county, but most are outside the county. And so for the Placerville opt-in database, that 1372 is the number of opt-ins from the last contract we had. So in the last 4 months, we've had 441 new opt-ins for Placerville. So now you have a database of 1813. Which is really, pretty good considering you haven't been at it very long. And like I said, it's not just hearing from us, it's saying, yes, I want to see what you have to say, and clicking that Placerville specific information. So we sent out several different emails that Placerville was featured in. Holiday events, we had an open rate of 44%. That's way above industry standard, but really great. Click-through was 3%. I think click-through is normally 1.5%, so we're still above, even on the 3%, maybe 2%, we're above that. And then the January events. So for instance, like I said, January is a pretty slim month, right? So we've got the Third Saturday Art Walk and the Burns Night Supper that was held at the Shakespeare Club. Those were things that we were promoting during the January events. And 45% and 5% click-through. Dish on Dining and Valentine's Day. So all that had above average results for sure. This is kind of interesting. I looked at the hits from December 1st through March 31st on the visiteldorado.com page. So not just the Placerville page, on the visiteldorado.com in general. So Placerville had 8 out of the top 10 of our top achievers here. So the homepage, of course, is first, but then, and where to play on a snow day, that was pretty obvious, right? Is second, but then Placerville events, those events I just mentioned, they're in there. Placerville, 4 things to do for the history buff, how to make the most out of your weekend in Placerville, hometown holiday, downtown Placerville, and the Placerville parade, or the Christmas parade. Those were all in the top 10 for all those months together out of all the content we have. So I feel like people are still looking for that content. They want it. They think they've made a good decision by opting in and coming to the website and finding more. Oh, this is a video. We took that video that we did before, those videos, and just pulled out a few of, kind of repurposed that and making what makes Placerville special. So hopefully if I push this, it'll happen.
Everybody mixes together and hangs out and enjoys the food and the art shops and delicious coffee. There's kids, there's families, there's people that are coming through and exploring. It's just a great place.
Okay, kind of underwhelming because you couldn't hear it very well, but it is, you can feel it, right? You can feel that she was very enthusiastic about Placerville. We took the content and just clipped it all together, and so we've got enough content now for Placerville to do that with a bit more. So, and all it's going to cost is editing rather than actually coming out and having a day of shooting. Also on this logo is something that we created for you. It definitely screams Placerville. It has the old-fashioned feel to it, non-offensive. You know, we've put it out there and haven't had any nastygrams, so I think we did okay with that. Okay, this is just a snapshot of what I was speaking about earlier about your demographic. And we would probably, moving forward, really go deeper into this. So these are the top markets for the Placerville visitors specifically by spend. So the Sacramento, Stockton, Modesto, that's all one market. So that's it's a DMA, one market. So that represents 41% of your visitors, but only 30% of the visitor spending. So we've got Visa, we've got phone records, phone geodata, we've got 30 different things feeding into this. So 30% of your visitor spending, but 41% of your visitors. So that to me says there's a lot of day visitors. So if we're going to Sacramento, if we're focusing on Sacramento, we want to convert those into overnighters. So we're still getting the same amount of visitors, but we're getting more money for each one. And then San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose, 17% of the visitors, 17% of the visitor spending. So they're kind of evening out there. So Reno, that's the big hit, I think, is 8% of the visitors, but they're spending 13% of the visitor spending. So for Placerville, we would definitely focus more on that. We know that they enjoy our wine country, and they obviously enjoy, they're spending money in Placerville, but we want to get more visitors, right? There's 8% and they're overspending the amount of visitors we have, the volume. So that's a market that we're definitely, I would look at for Placerville more. And then Los Angeles is 6% of the visitors, 5% of the visitor spending. So those are the top 4 DMAs for you, top 4 markets by spend for you. That's it. Questions?
Thank you, Jody. Mm-hmm. Do we have any questions from the council?
I just make a comment, Jody. Thank you as always for all the information. It's really interesting, especially the last bullet about the snapshot. I think that's that's just very cool. It's like I was just joking. I was saying maybe we need a couple of slot machines for the Reno people. We'll even draw up their spend even more. But to the extent that we can keep reaching these audiences, I think obviously is very important. And even LA, I was a little surprised that they made it into the.
I find LA is mostly the road trip, so that Gold Country road trip. So Placerville is obviously a really good stop if you've got that road trip that you're making from Yosemite up to Sierra City or something. But a lot of that I think is road trip.
Are you seeing anything? I mean, from the things that you've run, and what is there anything different that you would do? I mean, is there any, from like a lessons learned perspective, something new you might want to try?
Yeah, absolutely. I want some short form video. So videos, it's all about video now, whether there's going to be TikTok, not going to be TikTok, whatever. YouTube's got shorts. And so I would definitely want to take that video we have and cut it up into shorts, whatever that is. What makes Placerville special? Why do you love living here? We can make resident video. So I would cut that up, get some more footage, cut that up, and then put that out, and then send it over there to Reno, Carson City, and just feed them a whole plate of that.
Nice.
Gotcha. Thank you.
When you say you need more video, would you take stuff from people's cell phones that you want to send them, or is it just professional stuff you're doing?
What is kind of cool on YouTube and those shorts are vertical, right? So and your phone can do it. So the only bad part about that is if you all sent me stuff, oh, look at this video, then I have to pay somebody to look through that video, and then some of it's going to be lesser and more. So absolutely what I'd like to do is get somebody that specializes in, I've been searching for short form video that lives here, not just somebody really great with their phone, but that can really do this right, and contract with them for for stuff, because it's just, you look around, there's a ton of it. I mean, I personally posted some, when it started snowing, from the office, and I couldn't believe how many people, and there was so much snowing pictures, but they just love those little bits. And if we could get locals to do that, that would be even better.
Great. Thank you so much. We'll open this to public comment for any questions.
Good evening, Kirk Smith. When this subject was last before you, there was a similar kind of slide presentation, and you were told in asking for more money to deliver on marketing that there were already 2 products that had been delivered to the city of great value. Even if you chose not to continue the contract to allow them to update it, there were 2 products. The first was photographs taken by 3 photographers of all businesses in Placerville. And that was available without charge to any of those merchants, any of those businesses to use to promote their business during the rough times that followed the pandemic. The other was you were given a contact list, a media contact list to use for promotion purposes. And I asked at the time, where were they? And was told that the media list was given to the city manager, and then was told, in answer to my question, that the photographs were available on the website. And it wasn't clear to my dense mind which website that was, but I looked at all of them, and I asked both the chamber and I asked the city. They apparently are not available. I don't know where they are. I own commercial property. I have tenants who could use those photographs that were supposed to be of great value. Where are they? Now, I don't want somebody to come back after I've been up here and say, oh, Mr. Smith, you forgot to ask so-and-so. Because trust me, I've got plenty of correspondence to show that I did my due diligence. So where are they? I've asked merchants on Main Street, people at businesses, the very businesses that were hurt by the pandemic. So my problem is not with the chamber. They're good, honest people, and if you throw money at them and don't ask for any kind of accountability, I'm not going to blame them. My friends, my concern is with you. I don't see where you did the due diligence. You did the oversight to see where our $50,000 was being spent. And just tonight, you had all that material out in advance to read, and then we go over it point by point. So without a chance to really go into specific questions as to where those videos are and the like, I don't know. All I know is when it comes to those photographs of businesses in Placerville available for free to those businesses to use, I don't know where they are. I don't know what website they're on, but they're not readily available on any website that I've been told about. And believe me, I've asked all relevant persons. As for that media contact list, it's of no value. You could not possibly have looked at it and ever used it. So I'm not going to take my 3 minutes with a bunch of records requests to follow it up. I want to know what did you do to make sure that that information about those photographs were made available to merchants, to people in businesses. What examples can you offer of that media contact list ever having been used, and how? Because it doesn't look like the $50,000 could be accounted for. And I know that when it comes to all that money you spend on different kinds of things, and I see your point, thank you. To wrap up, is to say that we don't see the indication of when you have a contract for a bridge or something, you're going to ask for an itemized bill. Do you have that? Do we know how much money was spent to produce these things? Thank you.
Thank you, Kirk. Do we have any other questions or comments from the public?
Ruth Carter, City of Placerville. And as somebody that uses social media pretty heavily for my business, I understand the value and importance of using social media. I know I've been before City Council before and mentioned that, the Chamber has an agreement to provide these pictures, as Kirk was saying, videos, different postings now. We, as a city, really don't need to be spending that money now. The COVID money is dry, and we don't need to spend more money on that. We have crumbling infrastructure that we need to spend money on. We already have a contract with the social media gal. if she has access to that stuff, maybe her contract could be expanded upon to include some social media posts regarding that type of stuff. I realize that she's supposed to be more of a public information sort of poster, but maybe we could expand upon that and save the city some money and maybe buy some barricades for our events downtown instead. So, maybe there's more effective use of those funds. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ruth. Any other questions, comments? None? Seeing none? Okay, we'll bring it back to the council. Cleve, do you have any comments?
Yes, I will just quickly respond. I think I sent this message to Mr. Smith before. I have access to all of those photos, videos, this presentation. All of that information is it's in a Dropbox, I'll put it that way, that I have access to. I think my response to him before was, if I just throw them out there on the website for anybody to use, I believe it diminishes the effectiveness of those. And I stated that if any business wants those, and maybe that's where we haven't done, is let the business know if you want to use those, you're welcome to come and see what we have and use those. I was just concerned about putting those up for all of the public to use, because I think that diminishes the effectiveness of those materials. So,
great. Thank you, Cleve.
I'm wondering if we couldn't just do whether it's to PDA or some of the other groups that are out there now, just here's a link. We just have to still. Yes, it could be passed around, but you still have some control over it, just so we can disseminate the information a little bit more. But I don't disagree. We should try to get the information out there to folks to the extent possible. I know we have an email distribution list, but I'm sure it's not all.
It's not everybody.
It's not everybody. Yeah. But if there's a way to get it at least to some of the organizations, then we can disseminate a little bit more information.
Okay. I'll look into that and see what we can do.
Okay. Any other questions, comments from the council? No? Okay. Thank you very much. We will move on to item 6.2, the Placerville Fire Safe Council presentation. Mr. Morris.
Yes, I'm just going to introduce the Fire Safe Council and invite them up. And to start with, perhaps we have a proclamation we want to read, or a presentation that was from our senator during the event that we want to present to them. So I'll give that back to you, Vice Mayor.
Okay. This is from the Senate, a certificate of recognition for the Placerville Fire Safe Council and City of Placerville. The second annual Get Prepared for Wildfire Season. On behalf of the California State Senate, I would like to honor you for supporting efforts that raise awareness about the importance of wildfire preparedness. You, your staff, and volunteers are to be commended for your commitment to mitigate the loss of property and natural resources in the Placerville area due to wildfire. I wish to thank you for being committed to the safety and welfare of our community. Presented on March 18th, 2023, Marie Alvarado Gill, 4th Senate District. Mark?
Would you like to walk it down?
The mayor will walk it down to you.
If the mayor could do his role this evening in
walking
proclamations, please. Easy now. Don't get winded. It could affect your voice. We will entrust the city. Where's David at? Get over here, please. He's so shy. Our fearless leader. Mr. Mayor, if you would, Mr. Zelensky.
Get everybody in.
Go around that way, Sue. How's that? All right.
All right, Sue, smile. Very nice, you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Did you want?
Well, we're going to have to.
Don't touch that.
You have a plan. All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Vice Mayor, for reading that proclamation. And I want to start out by introducing myself. I'm Mark Acuna. I'm with the Placerville Fire Safe Council. We're here this evening to give you an update on our March 18th event, as well as enjoy the recognition from the Senator. Greatly appreciated her attendance. And as I've joked, we are now an award-winning event, so we will have to charge you twice as much as we did this year, which was $0. So It's kind of cool, though. I really appreciate her interest, and also all the city council members that came that day. Appreciate all of your attendance. With Vice Mayor No is our Fire Safe Council liaison with the city council, and in her absence, I recruited Councilmember Clarici. He tried hard, but we look forward to having you in attendance with us next year. So, with that, allow me to go ahead and David, put the sign down, please. I want to start with, first of all, after thanking the council, I would also like to thank all the wonderful volunteers that helped make the event successful. Our attendance this year was, we measured at about 300, which is up from 125 last year. So we're very pleased with that. And they're all here, most of everybody, well, we've got in the great group picture, so and I appreciate some of our members have gone great distances to get here tonight. So appreciate the attention and the recognition, and couldn't have done it without them. So it was a big building. Would like to thank City Manager Morris for all his assistance throughout the many months that we planned this. It was, I was here, I believe it was in September of last year, and two great chiefs approached me before the meeting and said, Mark, you really need a bigger venue. I've told you this story before. And it was our distinguished police chief, Joe Wren, and our impassioned fire chief, Jim Cordero, that made 681 Main Street the reality, and I think a much better venue for our event this year and for hopefully many years to come. While I'm on city folks, I would like to just thank three folks in particular who took time out of their Saturdays to make sure that we had everything we needed. And that was Tyler Gilbert from the Parks and Rec crew, and a special thanks to Louis Zacharias and David Thar for their participation in the morning and very late in the day, in the afternoon, in all their hard work, barricades, garbage disposal, etc. Again, couldn't have done it without their cooperation, and I thank the department heads for allowing us to have such excellent employees helping us out. Just so you know, there were 15 agencies and one bakery in attendance on March 18th. Sweet Pairings, we had a lot of fun working with the owner-operator there at Sweet Pairings throughout our planning and the day of the event. They eventually all wound up wearing fire hats. So I don't want to take the chance of missing one, so we will just say that, you know, we were very pleased to have that number of agencies that attended, and also have already committed to attending again in 2024. And I would like to take a couple of minutes and specifically thank Chief Cordero for his tremendous support and encouragement, lending his staff and expertise, lending his name, if you will, to outside agencies when we would contact somebody. I'm sure it was through his great standing in the fire community that we always received, oh, sure, we'll be there. Absolutely. Thank you very much. And I know that came as a part of his reputation in the firefighting community. So, Chief, thank you very much. It was an awesome day. Exciting to have so many kids and adults and interest in fire safety. Chief was kind enough this year to allow us to continue to work with Braden Sterling, who is now Division Chief. And it was a lot of fun to work with him. His passion for the fire service is just amazing. And again, the desire to deliver that important safety message was really, really wonderful to have him aboard. And it was again through Chief Cordero that we were able to contact Chief Bo Johnson, the Chief of El Dorado Hills Fire Department, who graciously lent the fire simulation table and two of his prevention officers for the day, who did an amazing job burning down different parts of Placerville. I got to watch my neighborhood burn in the afternoon, and it was scary. So, but it was also equally great to witness the difference when they input home hardening and quick suppression action. the fire didn't hardly go anywhere. So the proof is in the science, and it was when we look forward to having that simulation back again next year. Through the course of this, we, of course, with getting the certificate of recognition and the great attendance, we have done a couple of other things. One of our volunteers, Jill Bluekeith, has done a wonderful job with our graphic arts, done a tremendous job in updating all of our contact information, social media, kind of like we heard her just a minute ago. And through that process, the idea came that perhaps Town Hall would be a good place for us to have a semi-permanent display hanging on the wall. We thought that the certificate might make a nice centerpiece. We have, through the help of Rebecca Neves' department, some really beautiful new maps that do a couple of things. One, outlines the current sphere of influence for the Placerville Fire Safe Commission, and it also has something that, David, signs up, please.
Oh, now I can do it.
Now you can do it, and there's two of them, and we're going to have a third.
But David's only get home like this.
And what we're in the process of doing is creating Firewise Communities. And it's a national organization that takes the towns and creates various areas that the community then breaks it down into, and it helps people get insurance breaks, as well as creating and tracking all of the home hardening work that people are going to do. So we're still in negotiations with the city manager and Terry Zeller as to where we're going to get to put our little display up, but we're looking forward to doing that and having this information and some other information always here in a place where the public can see it, and all the other various groups and organizations that come into Town Hall. So, David, would you like to say a few words? And again, without Mr. Zielinski and without Patty Morelli, who's in the audience, without their tenacity and persistence, we would not have had a Fire Safe Council. So, David?
He's taller than me. All right, there's two. Yeah. Let's see. On the Placerville Firewise, Tom Booz is in the audience also, and he's a regional coordinator as well as on the Placerville Fire Safe Council. And I hauled in two with hopes that I could fob them off on you. But anyway, one you can say is for Placerville South, so everything south of 50 in our sphere of recognition is now Firewise. And Placerville Northeast, where Tom is hoping to have more volunteers to help him, but he's the head person for Placerville Northeast. We have some folks working on Northwest, which is all that's left. And so with Placerville being almost all Firewise, that means not only the insurance discounts, but it means there's a focal point and plans. And so we'll keep on having community meetings. We'll try and work down to the neighborhood level. Hopefully we can keep National Night Out going. That's a great focus point for the community outreach. And we've got 3 years now of being Firewise in those areas, but we'll have to keep on earning it. Basically, I think it's about $30 a year per house, something like that, that has to be invested in an hour of volunteer work. It counts as $30. So it's not a big investment, and then Terry helped a great deal. Thank you, Terry, for the records that he gave me with what the city was doing with goats and hazardous tree mitigation and things like that. That really helped, made it easy for us to qualify on what's called the community investment. So I want to thank the city for that, but individuals are doing their work too. And hopefully South will get $25 million from FEMA and the county and the state and do 525 homes between now and, 3 years from now. I think even FEMA can pass something that fast, so we got to get it implemented too. So, Mark, where'd you go? There he is. So save me, Mark. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Is there any questions?
don't have any questions, but as Mark stated, I'm the liaison for that, and I can tell you that these volunteers put in an incredible amount of work. I saw all the emails going back and forth just to organize this event, which was a big deal, and Mark did an incredible amount of work for. And all of the volunteers, I sit in on those meetings, and you just can't believe how much stuff is going on and how many different things they're working on, and I just really want to thank them all because they worked really hard and put in a lot of good input. Thank you.
Yeah, likewise. Again, I want to thank everybody for all the hard work that they put into this. And aside from probably homelessness, which is kind of goes, together with this issue as well, is this is an issue where I've heard more from anybody aside from homelessness about the concerns and the cost and people losing their insurance and having to go on the FAIR plan. I mean, I know David probably deals with this every day. And so, to the extent that we build more Firewise communities, that we can mitigate some of the problems that are out there, that we hopefully get that FEMA to move on that $25 million, it's going to make a huge difference to this community, not just Placerville, but to El Dorado County as a whole. So again, I just want to thank all of you for your efforts. Appreciate it.
Okay, we'll open this to the public for questions. Oh, did you have more, Mark?
I just wanted to thank all of you and remind everybody that the core purpose is community safety, neighborhood safety. We hope and we appreciate your funding. We're in search of other funding. That funding goes to actually going out and doing home hardening, brush clearing, tree trimming for those folks that, for whatever variety of reasons, may not be able to do it or need our help. We do a contribution to maybe help somebody get over the hurdle so that they can afford to bring in the contractor. All the work that we do is fully inspected, both before and after, to ensure that it's all done safely and correctly, and the funds are, there's full transparency with any funding that we utilize throughout the city. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mark. We'll open this for public comment for any questions, comments.
Quick question could work, but I wondered about the storms that we've had this last year, record snowfall up in the Sierras, predictions of heavy flooding in the valley. So will the extra storms mean increased vegetation growth and in turn a greater increase in fire threat? Thank you.
Well, my experience has been yes with that, but Mark, if you'd like to tackle that.
Great question. I had Snowmageddon last year to the tune of several $1,000s in tree repair, which is counted again in a Firewise community. So again, we need to get these neighborhood, it's kind of like neighborhood watch, like the old neighborhood watch. We need to get block captains and folks that want to get, Chief Wren doesn't know, but we'll be contacting him to try and dig out the last little bit of the neighborhood watch info that's still current. Yeah, absolutely. There is a lot of dead, damaged trees down there from the windstorms and the snowstorms. Fuel load is huge. And I think if we continue to have this nice spring, we're going to have a load of grass that is going to just be a problem. So, yeah, our work is just it never stops. And we're honored to, partner with those in the fire service to try and do our part. But all the more reason to have the Firewise communities.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the public? No? Okay, we'll bring this back. Thank you so much. We will move on to number 7, consent calendar. Do we have any questions or comments from the council? No? Okay. We'll open this for public comment for item 7 on the consent calendar. Seeing none, we'll bring this back to the council for a motion.
I'll move to adopt the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call.
Councilmember Gottberg?
Aye.
Councilmember Yarbrough?
Aye.
Vice Mayor No?
Aye.
Mayor Saragosa?
Aye.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. And that brings us to public comment. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the council on any matter not on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. State law prohibits the council from acting on items not listed on the agenda except by special action of the City Council under specific circumstances. Mayor reserves the right to limit speakers' time to 3 minutes. You are not allowed to make personal attacks on individuals or make comments that are slanderous or may invade an individual's personal privacy. 8.1, oral communications. So if anyone would like to make from the public who'd like to make a public comment for something not on the agenda, please come forward. Thank you.
Kirk Smith, about your first item, the legal matter, I understand the Brown Act, you're going to embody the basic due process requirements of notice and opportunity to be heard that's covered by your agenda. I just didn't understand the complaints that, oh, you should have listed all the options, all the various things you could have done, because that seems to undermine the very purpose of the Brown Act, which is to have open discussion. And if you did that, you'd be narrowing it very much. So if there's more to share, fine, I'll let it go. But the big question I have is, I looked at your tape of 2 years ago and understood you had some very strong views that were, in my view, very clear about what you wanted. So if your decision last time looked like it was just an embodiment of what was done before. Now, I know you've got a managerial system of government and we've got great people, but what I can't understand is, why did it go this long? Why wasn't there why was the contract discussion going on after you gave what in essence was a mandate 2 years ago that last year was to be the end? Why was there negotiation with those folks up in agriculture country to come in and take over the town again? And were businesses part of that process? That's what I couldn't figure out, is it came to us at a very late stage, and it seemed like it put us all in a bind. Lastly, with just a few seconds left, I want to apologize to the Vice Chair because of taking the time. But just to let you know, when I'm having a conversation, I look at people and I don't look up there on the clock. So what you might want to do is put the clock over on the dais so I could look at you and not have to stare off up on the wall, which I'm going to do anyway. Listen, thank you. That's my suggestion. Love to have some answers.
Thank you, Kirk. Are there any other comments from the public? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council.
I will say, Kirk, I'll just make a comment on we hate that. Like, I hate looking at that thing because I always feel like I'm being disrespectful to a person speaking. But, we have to try to keep it on schedule. So, but as we do the rehab of this location, that will change. So it won't happen until we start making the changes here in Town Hall, but that's one of them because we don't like it, and I know you all don't like it either. So that's coming.
Okay. Mr. Morris? No? Okay. Are there any written communications? None? Okay. We will move to item 9, items pulled from the consent calendar. We did not have any of those. We don't have any ordinances. We don't have any public hearings. We continued 12.1 or pulled it? So what exactly does that mean?
We still take public comments? No, you don't have to.
Okay. Okay, we will move on to 12.2. Acknowledge and file the AB 481 annual report and direct staff to post the report pursuant to Government Code 7072. Chief Wren.
Yes, this annual report meets the legal requirements established in Assembly Bill 481 concerning police departments' acquisition or possession of items deemed to be military equipment. On a side note, I spent 6 years in the military and 27 years as law enforcement, and I can't see the connection with some of these items, specifically with the items that we currently possess. We have patrol rifles, flashbang, they're light sound diversionary devices, also known as flashbangs, and we do have pepperball guns. We have not acquired anything new in between the time of the original presentation and now. And I don't believe, I'm trying to think back on what I did for capital outlay, but I don't believe we have anything to present to the council this coming fiscal year that would meet the requirements outlined in AB 481. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have regarding this.
Great. Thank you, Chief Wren. Questions from the council?
No, I'll just make a comment. I mean, I think I made this comment the first time this came out, and this, I mean, for some larger jurisdictions, like, for example, I think it was just in the city of Sacramento about less than a month ago, there was a great discussion. I think they got like an MRAP or some similar type vehicle, and so there was discussion amongst the community as to whether or not that was a necessary vehicle for the city to have. But, I mean, to the chief's point, I mean, I just don't. I know this is a check-off thing that we have to do for the state of California. I don't anticipate Placerville ever probably getting an MRAP, as much as I'd be the first one to ask for a ride-along if we did get one. But that being said, I you know, this is just one of those things that we're, you know, somebody's watching, maybe at Department of Justice in California, probably not. But it was a bill that got passed that has someone's name on it. So there you go.
Okay. Do we have any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, we'll bring this back to council. This says just acknowledge and file, so we don't need to make a motion or anything.
I would like a motion to
Okay.
approve it, though. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to acknowledge and file the AB 481 annual report.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None. Passes unanimously. Okay, we'll move on to 12.3. Receive and file status update and approve additional environmental services for the Clay Street Bridge replacement project. Ms. Neves.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. The item before you is to provide a status update on the Clay Street Bridge replacement project and to approve additional environmental services. The Clay Street Bridge replacement project has been a planned project since the late 1960s and early 1970s, and it made its first official debut in the city planning documents as Project Number 9, Clay Street, in the Master Street Plan adopted by City Council in January of 1975. The project scope includes potentially replacing the existing one-lane, one-way at a time Clay Street Bridge with a two-lane bridge and realigning of Clay Street to become a four-way stop-controlled intersection with Main Street and Cedar Ravine Road. In 2006, the city project was successfully awarded funds to deliver the project through the Highway Bridge Program, which serves as the primary funding source for the project. It's also important to note that this source is a federal funding source and it is project specific, and unfortunately those types of funds are very specific in that they can't be used on any other projects either. In staff's report, covered in great detail, are concerns related to the structural stability and longevity of the bridge and Cedar Ravine Culvert, which ties in at the southerly abutment. The structure is an earthen-filled arch culvert style bridge, and with the internal failure of the bridge is most notably visible in the active deck failure where the at-grade crosswalk has begun cracking and is now sinking. The biannual bridge inspection reports that are prepared by Caltrans and provided to the city have shown a steady decline in the near 97-year-old structure, which further supports the need to replace the bridge. The city has also received public comments and concerns regarding the overall public health and safety and use impacts of the bridge as it relates to wildfire evacuations and general calls for service from first responders, as exhibited by the example public comment that was received this evening. Station 25 does utilize the current bridge for medic and fire engine calls for service to neighborhoods just north of US 50, including Coleman Street, Lincoln, Benson, and Grandview. Because this project is federally funded, it's required to complete the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, clearance, as well as the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, compliance processes. In 2015, a request for proposals was issued for the environmental clearance and design services of the project, and CEQA qualifications were then provided by the four received proposals, including Dewberry Engineers, which is formerly Drake Hagelin and Associates. In October of 2015, the city received a scope and fee for completing both CEQA and NEPA environmental compliance process, but ultimately, city staff chose to continue the contract with Michael Baker and Associates for the CEQA EIR scope of work And at the December 8th, 2018 meeting, City Council awarded the contract to Dewberry for NEPA and design services of the project. Since that time, the draft EIR was released for public review in March of 2018, and as the city pursued responding to the comments received from that circulation, it was clear a different approach was needed to address the cultural and historic resources considered within the project footprint. In June of 2018, the city reopened its Section 106 consultation process, which included participants and parties from the United Ancient Order of the Druids, Grove 1, which is the local chapter, but then the city was later directed to correspond and coordinate with the national order instead in the following years, as well as Friends of Historic Hangtown and various tribe organizations. Following that consultation process, the project team, consisting of Caltrans, the city, and various consultants, revised to a more conservative approach for evaluating historic and cultural resources within the project. Since that time, the project has received concurrence from the State Historic Office of Preservation, SHPO, and is including its efforts in the its efforts in the NEPA and CEQA documents. Which leads me to the second action under this item, which is requesting approval of Amendment Number 5 to the Dewberry contract. Once consultation with the United Ancient Order of the Druids National Grove was underway and SHPO concurrence was received, it became imperative to update the EIR with current cultural and historic documentation process. In October of last year, a task order for $25,000 was issued to Dewberry to provide recommendations and comments to update the EIR as it pertains to the cultural documentation. Additionally, in October, the city also reached out to its EIR consultant, Michael Baker project staff, to engage them in the update of the document. And then at that time, following the review of Dewberry's task order, had learned that key staff for the project had retired. Once it became clear that, unfortunately, no institutional knowledge of the project had been passed on to any other Michael Baker staff, the city then reached out to Dewberry to request a scope and fee for completing the EIR, since they had already provided their CEQA qualifications previously as part of their response to the 2015 RFP process. The attached amendment also includes the EIR, but includes other notable work related to updating the project hydraulic study to reflect water surface elevations observed in recent large storms that will allow for the future bridge to stay at the current bridge elevation. It includes alternatives related to preserving a creekside park and viewing area within the project footprint, similar to what you see today. Cultural resources documentation to finalize the finding of effect and cultural resources management plan pertaining to preservation of the Druid Monument, and updating the initial site assessment, as well as updating the Section 4F documents to include 4 cultural resources for evaluation, from 2 resources to 7. This item also includes ratifying the previous task order mentioned, that was issued in October, which has not been fully expended to date, and the work within that task order is actually considered complete. There's approximately $10,000 remaining. There is a fair amount of the EIR data that can still be utilized in the EIR, so it's important to understand that this is not necessarily throwaway work from the previous efforts that were done. But now we've gotten to a point where we still want to actually pursue the EIR and feel that Dewberry has met the qualifications. They provided those qualifications, and they're best positioned to keep us moving forward on the project. But it is important to acknowledge that because of the in-depth and conservative approach that we've taken to evaluating historic and cultural resources for the project, which is actually a key requirement of an order of writ that was issued to the city in 2012 as part of the judgment that necessitated the EIR be developed from the beginning. It is important to note that this significant change and conservative approach in cultural and historic resources documentation has been actually been under the oversight of Caltrans and Dewberry and the city this whole time. So they were a good fit to move into that position. Attached to staff's report includes a project delivery schedule that was recently provided to the Highway Bridge Program, and approval of this item will support that the schedule is held with an estimated recirculation of the EIR around the end of June. Staff's recommendations for ratifying task order number 1, Amendment 5, with an initial notice to proceed of $100,000 for EIR-related tasks and $125,000 budget appropriation from the city's Traffic Impact Mitigation Fund for the project. That includes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Rebecca. Do we have any questions from the council?
I just had one. Will this EIR essentially cover the range of alternatives that have been considered or contemplated for the Clay Street Bridge project?
Yes, ma'am. Every single one of them.
Thank you. I just want to make sure we don't have to go back again at some point in the future if we do something different.
Yeah, and actually I want to note that it's a blessing in disguise the way that the delay in the EIR has actually come about since the 2018 circulation, is that we actually do have additional alternatives to consider and that have been looked at as project delivery proceeded.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so quick question. So actually, I want to take it back to the letter that we got with all the really nice, pretty pictures. When it comes with the Clay Street project, obviously it's going to be taking care of some of that issue. But once you get over the Clay Street Bridge and you get under the overpass for the highway, we have that same issue down there with the road and the parking and such. Is any of that project going to be addressing any of that? Because you have exactly the same issue there.
That would have to be addressed under a separate project because the Highway Bridge Program actually has some pretty strict guidelines about how far they will allow a project scope to reach. I was kind of noted when we did presentations for the Placerville Drive Bridge, but it's typically 200 feet in each direction of the bridge conform. So where your bridge lands, you can go maximum 200 feet in each direction. So to the south, it covers the intersection, the realignment, and to the north, it covers the realignment that goes on underneath Highway 50. As far as I'm imagining that you're talking about the cliff-like sidewalks.
Yes. Yeah.
That is actually a project that's a great candidate for an active transportation project. And so that would be something that I would recommend that we pursue outside of this project scope.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this one kills me only because it's unfortunate that we have to make this pivot to do this. Do you know, Rebecca? I mean, if Michael Baker would have had the staff in place to continue doing what they were doing for us, I mean, how much difference in cost would we have been looking at? Because I know obviously there was still more work to have to be done. I mean, how much did they cost us, basically?
Given how much reusable work there is, I would say that they didn't. I would conservatively say that they didn't cost us any more than about 25%. But I will say that where they were currently scoped was to revise select sections, and when Dewberry's taking over the EIR, they essentially take over ownership of the document and the data that's contained within. And so part of that effort actually comes to, because of the dramatic pivot in how we assessed our cultural resources, it's amazing how much that actually touches in the document, and rightfully so. And then the other part of it, too, was just how the scope was developed even with Michael Baker's contract. We would be in a similar situation with an amendment to their contract because of that change.
And that's what I was getting to, is that
yes,
the road had sort of deviated from our original
this amendment would likely be in place with their contract as well.
All right. So it costs us some money, but not necessarily the entire thing here. I mean, it's still, I'm hoping this is a lesson learned for everybody on this in terms of, I don't know if we would have anticipated someone retiring, but certainly I'm a consultant, and I can't imagine that leaving my client in the lurch like that on something and not providing something to remedy that situation. So that's, I guess, how I would look at it.
Prior to
for my own reputation.
Prior to my own purposeful arrival here as staff at the city, I had a former life as a consultant. That was actually the bulk of my career prior to this, and I agree with you. Passing off projects was a requirement when leaving a place of employment. I was really, really surprised, and I have to say, it was the first time I've ever been ghosted by a client or by a consultant. So, I mean, I was a little surprised, but I can't imagine, there may have been circumstances that we're just not aware of. And so generosity of thought leads me to just issue grace and let's move on.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Great. Any more questions, comments from the council?
I would just echo the same. Obviously, I'm an environmental consultant. I prepare EIRs as part of my job, and I certainly would not leave a client without a transition plan ever. So,
Thank you. Okay, we'll open this for public comment.
Madam Vice Mayor, at this point, I would just like to state for the record that 2 items of written communication were received by Marianne Washburn, copies of which are on the back table for public inspection.
Thank you, Regina.
Ruth Carter, City of Placerville. I would like to know where the public can find the most current maps for the suggested or proposed alternatives and changes. The maps I've reviewed online are tiny. They are very, very difficult to see the scale of what's going on. And I've found that from a public standpoint, it's very difficult to review what the proposed actual changes are in a simplified format. So that's the first thing. The bridge is not a major thoroughfare. It's a gateway to the neighborhood. Yes, cars drive through it, but it's not truly in need of widening. The benefit of the current width is that it slows drivers down. They're not speeding through and hitting pedestrians coming out of that parking lot. While the Clay Street Bridge is in disrepair, it can be replaced using a like-for-like model with a bridge and an additional side pedestrian walking bridge without taking away parking spaces from our downtown businesses. The farmers market was moved with the thought, according to the voiced council members, that it had a negative impact on the brick and mortar businesses with regard to parking. The current proposed plan would approve widening and realignment of Cedar Ravine with Clay Street, removing precious parking spaces used for the businesses nearest to the Ivy lot. This is not a community improvement project that I feel good about. The project will change the city street view, and it will look and feel quite different than our historic city currently feels. I believe it will negatively impact our downtown brick and mortar businesses as well as the farmers market. This plan needs revision. As far as I can see, and I really can't tell how many parking spaces we're losing, and so that's really a big concern because we are not growing parking lots. We don't water concrete or asphalt, and it doesn't pop up with the parking structure. So that's really vital to our downtown businesses, and I really want to make sure that we're not making unnecessary burdens on our downtown businesses, all of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth.
And good evening to you, City Council members. Marion Washburn here in my traditional role as a booster of the proposed project. Because this project has gone on so long, it's real clear that so many people have moved here, moved out, new people have moved here, that the scope of the effort is sort of lost because the conversation has gotten so strung out. But to get started, let me state my position as a neighbor. I live about 3 blocks from the bridge, so I wind up using it at least once a day, if not several times a day. So I've had opportunity to see how it functions, and in my opinion, how it doesn't function more exactly. And I did take photos, and I believe you got a copy of that. I have countless photos a similar vein showing what I consider to be extremely dangerous conditions, and I could expound on that, but within 3 minutes, that's probably a bad idea. You don't need to hear the details, but those photos give you kind of a feeling for how that intersection is utilized. Ironically, as I was coming to the meeting, there was a fire truck and a ambulance crossing Clay Street Bridge, and of course, we all had to pull over and stop. And I think most of us have become accustomed to, well, that's what we do in that situation. But once the Paradise Fire occurred, and it was evident of how important it is, egress and ingress, with enough room for people to go in and out, emergency personnel to come in while residents are trying to get out, became kind of front and center. And as I mentioned in my letter, I have heard for a number of years from fire personnel, a number of years, decades, in fact, in Placerville, that bridge, that professional safety personnel found that as a potentially dangerous passway. And I might remind folks who haven't been here a long time, Clay Street was a dead end before the Cottonwood project was installed. The Clay Street only went up to Coleman, and then Coleman was a perpendicular off of that. So when the Cottonwood housing project was proposed, the neighbors all said on Lincoln Street and on Clay Street, you can't insert all those houses without fixing that bridge. And so as a mitigation to the traffic that would be created by those housing projects, it was agreed that the lots in Cottonwood would contribute a certain number of dollars to building that bridge as the populace asked for. And now I'm sure you've all been up to the top of Cottonwood where the new lots go all the way up to Rodan. So we will be having a lot more traffic feeding into that narrow passageway, and yet the improvement that was promised originally has not been built yet. So for many reasons, safety, and I don't have any, I was just going to tell an anecdote, but I'm on zero, so I won't tell it. But for safety reasons, I feel very strongly, and this is why I've been an advocate of this project for so many years.
Thank you, Marion.
Kirk Smith. I'm concerned about the timing to start off with, because there's been a big holiday, and it's not the kind of thing that's highlighted in the report. Nobody's really reminded that this is a project that's been talked about for, I've lost track, a dozen years, and the source of countless meetings and lots of discussion. Almost all of you on the dais come well after this controversy's been around. Some have been advocates and certainly addressed the subject closely elsewhere, but this is really a first time for many of you. And I'm so old, I remember when $1 million was a lot of money. And that's what you're being asked to look at. And if you look back at all the dollars, it's extraordinary. And the reason I think you should delay it is there's lots of things to look at besides this advocacy piece. Because, for example, I remember that according to the state standards for bridges, that one is not outdated and does not have to be replaced. Also, it was described as one way. I've been there and watched 2 cars go by. When you're reference to developments up at the top, that takes into account as if that was the only way for entrance egress. It's not. I've heard folks talk recently about talking to the state representative, federal representative, about seeking a general accounting office audit, because after all, this is, as we were described, federal money. I remember, and again, I don't have it before us over the weekend, but that there was a requirement from the federal government when they dished out some money that you had to take some action by a particular date or it would be lost. I don't remember that. It's a lot of material to kind of look at over a holiday weekend, isn't it? And that is a huge sum of money, so I think we should be fiscally responsible. there was the language that's understandable for somebody who's involved in the project to think of these various laws in disparaging terms. But isn't that what got you in trouble, 10 years ago or so, when critics said, you need to follow the California Environmental Quality Act? And the answer was, no, we don't. And then it cost you a lot of money when a judge said, no, you do, and you were ordered to, in essence, follow it. So I think there's a lot of material you need to look at. I was particularly concerned with the reference to reopen it up to hear from the Druids. I was the president, in essence, of the Druids when the Grove 1 was opened up. And we passed a resolution with only one person abstaining, otherwise unanimous, supporting it. We understood that it was a gift to you. It was up to you as to what you would do with it. But we took the position of giving you our recommendations and why. And I can tell you that people who've been Druids forever, their fathers and their grandfathers and so on, outside the town, felt that it was entirely up to you and we had no business doing it. But that's the fact, that's the resolution. The resolution has never been changed. So I can't tell you how many times I'd have people from up above tell me, it's strictly up to you, and then I'd come into this room or other rooms, I'd find them here, which is a complete shock. I can tell you that last night at the meeting, like so many, there wasn't enough for a quorum, and there were only 2 people that were local. So when you're told about the Druids support this, et cetera, you're talking about folks who aren't in this area and who have not taken a position that's contrary to the one that the Druids officially took, which is in your record. Again, that just concerns me. And all the more reason why you should really have a full airing of this so you don't come back in a mismatch and hear this all over again. And lastly, it was mentioned that this has been talked about for 60 years, and that's probably true. But it's also true that for 171 years, there's been talk of changing the bell tower. And it was actually changed and moved a couple of times in the 1850s, and in the streetscape study, it actually was proposed that it be moved again, albeit slightly and repositioned. So being talked about doesn't mean much. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirk.
Sue Rodman, Placerville resident and member of the Measure HL Committee. 1974? Really? 50 years ago, the city saw the need to replace the Clay Street Bridge. It was only 50 years old then, which is the expected life of a bridge. Now it's closer to 100 years old, and we are extremely fortunate that it has not failed yet. In case of a fire, it is too narrow to allow emergency equipment in and residents out. While I admire the historic stonework on the Main Street side of the bridge, if you look on the other side of the bridge abutments, it's appalling. The abutment looks like cement-filled sandbags. Not a standard bridge abutment, even when this bridge was built. One look at the railings and the surface will let you know that this bridge is falling apart. If you look under the bridge into the Cedar Ravine culvert, you will find the same type of structure that collapsed in the EID tunnel in the South Fork American River Canyon. It is hand-stacked stone with a mine timber roof. In fact, there are several types of culverts joined together from the bridge under Clay Street, Main Street, Pacific Street, and only a few feet from the Druid Monument. When this culvert collapses, not if, but when, it will cause some major damage. Public safety and respect for the city residents who live in neighborhoods served by Clay Street and this bridge, and who needs a safe evacuation route in case of fire, require us to replace this bridge.
Thank you, Sue. Any other public comment? Seeing none,
We'll bring it back to the council. Questions or comments from the council? We'll start with David.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. I mean, Lincoln Street is my neighborhood, so I do see on a daily basis what the traffic does on that. I mean, I crossed the Clay Street Bridge 3 times today. So yeah, it's an issue. I'm hoping that everything that we have set together, and when that project finally gets through, because I have a feeling this is going to end up happening one way or the other, that we're at least keeping in consideration the historic look of the bridge and, making that as best as we can. I am interested in, whether or not we're losing parking spaces or not, because that is income for the city. So that is a concern. I do like the idea of taking a look at some of the projects upward of Clay Street, because if we resolve the one section, we need to resolve the other, because when you start parking cars on both sides of that, you turn that street into a one-lane street. And I have more than once had to hit my brakes and watch people whiz by me and almost clip my car. So there is a safety element there. And I, on a weekly basis, watch our first responders and police departments try and travel up through Lincoln Street and Coleman Street. And those are very narrow streets, and there's nothing we can really do about that. They do a fantastic job navigating their way through, but even when the residents are parking on the streets, which they have to do because the parking up there is very limited, it gets very dangerous, and sometimes it takes them a minute to get to their call, which is now delaying first responders to an emergency situation. So personally, I think this project is something that we definitely need to move forward with, at least for safety factor. But I do have a big concern with the look and keeping the history of the town. So we need to take all of that into consideration.
Thank you. Nicole?
Sure, I'll go. I mean, to take any action on the Clay Street Bridge, we have to get through the ERR and the CEQA process. And, if we take no action, the bridge is going to collapse. That's just a function of the geologic conditions, design and construction of the bridge, and the physical processes over time. And, if anybody more has questions on that, I used to give a lecture at Princeton on this topic of failures because of geology and site conditions. I'm happy to meet with any constituent that would like to learn about that function. But we do need to do something, and in order to do anything, we have to complete the EIR. So, I mean, I don't think there's any question about moving this forward.
I'll take you up on that conversation just because I think that would be fascinating. So I'll buy you a coffee on that one. And I did have a question for Rebecca because it was brought up. What is the wooden trusses? Are they the same as or similar to what collapsed by Tap House? Is it that same type of construction underneath, or
in some areas? Yeah, the segment that failed near Tap House is actually very similar to the segment that failed when we repaved Pacific Street. It was essentially creek walls that somebody had placed a pseudo culvert top on it using segmented corrugated aluminum pipe. It wasn't even steel. If you may recall, in 2018, when we were doing the Pacific Street project, which it's a roadway project, so necessitated, working at the intersection necessitated upgrading the ADA ramps in the area. We actually were in the process of excavating the area for the ramps, and the culvert box, which is right in front of what used to be the old title company over here, actually started to vibrate enough to where he felt it in the backhoe, and the guy jumped out, and he's like, I'm not going to move this anymore. We need to get this equipment off of here. It's not secure. And ultimately, it ended up, once we took the top off, we realized it was basically moments from failing. And so we went through that process, but that is the same kind of material that you see sporadically for the Cedar Ravine culvert. It has several different types of materials. I've provided it in other staff report updates to the project. I believe the most recent one was back in 2021. And then there was another action item in 2020 as well as some frequently asked questions that are also available on the city's website that actually show the LiDAR photos of the Cedar Ravine culvert. It's in rough shape. She's had a good life. We need to let her go for the sake of the monument and for access on Main Street, because if the culvert fails and where it bisects Main Street, and it's actually already failed another time too. I was just reminded that in 2004, I found staff's reports from engineering staff to then Public Works Director Randy Paces regarding failure of the culvert where it's located in the Ivy House lot too. So it's already had a history of different failures, and we've been pretty fortunate that it hasn't happened at Main Street yet. and also anywhere near the Druid Monument. Did that answer your questions?
It did. And to the I'm trying to remember because I have my hard copy from 2018.
Yes.
When we thought it was around the corner. Now here we are, 2023. But I don't know. I know it lives on the website somewhere. Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering, as we get closer to going further into the EIR and moving, maybe we stick a button up on the main page or something where it's just easier, one click or something to get to it a little bit quicker. This is a major a major construction item for our city, just to the point of being able to see it. And I'm not sure if we can make the maps better or what have you. The way it's written is the way it's written. It's because that's why we have EIRs even to begin with, because there's lots of attorneys involved. So you really can't, for lack of a better term, dumb down the language because you don't want to give the false impression of something or change the meaning of a word. So unfortunately, that's why we all sign lots of documents that are very big. So I don't think we can change that, but to the extent that we can make it easier for folks to find, if it's possible, I'd love to be able to look into that. Yes, 1975. That was the year I was born. So, just to put it into perspective of when this city fathers and mothers first, took a look at this. And yes, lots of things change over time, but that bridge has changed over time. It's only gotten worse. So, we'll see where we go from here. Thank you.
Thank you. Like Kirk, I've been involved in this project pretty intimately for the last decade, 12, 13, I don't remember. We've had site reviews or we've had public meetings on site and walk them and discuss this. So we've really done extensive public outreach and been working on this for a very long time. I think we have a responsibility to the public to fix that bridge and move forward and after almost 50 years, get this project done. Whatever that looks like, I know John Clarici had addressed the railings and coming up with that historic look, and he had some examples. Like I said, we've been talking about this so long, I can't tell you what meeting we talked about that in or what, but, a lot of these things people are concerned about and have been looking for solutions, and I think as we move forward, we're going to finally come up with a project that everyone will be happy with. Well, not everybody, we never make everybody happy with, but that will be good for the town. With that,
I like to, Madam Vice Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the status update, but also to approve the additional environmental services for the Clay Street Bridge replacement project. And just one aside, on Sunday I was driving down Main Street, and even Main Street, I had to stop in front of Independent because there's cars parked on the other side. It used to be the brewery, because people couldn't get through. You cannot fit two cars through when there's cars parked on both sides of the street. So even on our major, everybody was taking turns, and we kind of get used to it, but that shouldn't be how that's just not a safe way to be able to do things as we go forward. So just wanted to throw that out there as well. Thank you.
And I'll second.
Okay.
So to be clear, your motion includes the resolution that's attached?
Yes, it does. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay. Any more discussion? No? Okay, we'll take roll call.
Councilmember Gottberg?
Aye.
Councilmember Yarbrough?
Aye.
Vice Mayor No?
Aye.
Mayor Saragosa?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to 12.4. Consider a new salary schedule and job description for the Assistant Finance Director position. Mr. Warren.
Good evening, Mayor Saragosa, Vice Mayor No, and members of the Council. The adopted fiscal year 22-23 operating budget assumes the reestablishment of the Assistant Finance Director position, which is currently vacant. Staff began an extensive month-long recruitment back in January, including job postings on the city's website, CSFMO website, Jobs Available, LinkedIn, and the Mountain Democrat newspaper. During the recruitment period, staff spoke to two qualified individuals who did not apply for the position, and both of those individuals indicated that they were earning much higher salaries in lower-level positions at other local government agencies in the surrounding area. Staff received 3 job applications for the position. One of the original 3 applicants was deemed unqualified. Staff attempted to schedule interviews with the remaining 2 applicants, and one of the remaining applicants declined an interview. Due to the dwindling size of the recruitment pool, staff decided to postpone the interviews until additional qualified applicants could be obtained. After further review, staff decided to reevaluate the position salary and begin a new recruitment at a later date until the position is filled. At its meeting, or at your meeting held on August 10th, 2021, the City Council approved an agreement with Bryce Consulting to perform a citywide compensation study. The 10 comparable agencies included in that study are shown on page 2 of the report. The study completed in early 2022, and the City Council adopted the salary study recommendations at your meeting on June 14th of 2022. The study showed that the Assistant Finance Director position salary was 46.46% below market median salary. Since that time, the salary has been increased by 8.65%. In order to attract additional qualified applicants and avoid salary compaction with higher level positions, staff is recommending a salary increase for the Assistant Finance Director by an additional 14.36%, effective April 14th of this year. We also recommend some minor changes in the job description for the Assistant Finance Director. A marked up version of the job description is included in your agenda packet. The current and proposed salary schedule for the Assistant Finance Director are shown on page 2 of the report. The proposed cost of the 14.36% salary increase is $1,491 net of cost recovery, because this position will be working on projects that are reimbursable through the end of this fiscal year. That's the amount, the dollar amount. The adopted fiscal year 22-23 operating budget did not assume the cost of this salary increase for the Assistant Finance Director position, which has been vacant for the past 9 months. The cost savings from the vacant position totals $59,861, which far offsets the $1,491 additional cost. The projected annual cost of the proposed position, net of cost recovery, is $9,405. If approved, staff will incorporate the $9,405 cost of the salary increase in the proposed fiscal year 23-24 operating budget for your consideration. Attached to the report is the new salary schedule, including the proposed salaries for the Assistant Finance Director position. The salaries for other positions remain the same. If approved, staff will begin a new recruitment utilizing the new salary schedule and job description. With that, staff recommends that you approve the new job description for the Assistant Finance Director position and approve and affirm the new salary schedule effective April 15th of this year. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. Questions from council? David?
Yeah, so Dave, just doing some quick math here. So basically 46.46% below market median salary. You guys came up pretty much halfway at, 23.45% between the two, the 8.65 and 14.36. Is that going to be enough to attract?
We hope.
Okay.
I think so. I think around 120, and I think that's close enough. And one of the things we're going to do, the city's health benefit package is very good in our region. And we're going to amplify that information in the next brochure of what the city pays for example, medical insurance. That's one thing we didn't do a good job of.
Okay.
And we're going to amplify that. So I think that's enough, yes. And the other thing it does is we don't want to bump up to higher level positions and create compaction.
Right. Yeah, I understand that there are regulations for that stuff. So if you end up going too high, then you're bumping everybody, and we're causing a bigger issue. So I just wanted to confirm that you had a good feeling about this, and we weren't going to end up with 3 people that say, "Hey, I want the job," and 2 people decline, and you got 1 person left.
Right. Yeah.
So okay.
Thanks for
great.
asking.
Thank you.
Nicole? Michael? No? Okay, we'll open this for public comment. Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for any further discussion and a motion.
I'll just say, I think, one, I support this, but I also think, as we look at this, it's an assistant city manager position, or actually, no, it's assistant finance director. But, Dave is a financial wizard, and we love him. We want him to stay forever, but Dave will not stay here forever, and neither will any of us. But we need to make sure we have that continuity built in, and I think this is something that we looked at. Coming out of the pandemic, is how do we build back up a staff that that has the ability to recruit from within as we move forward. And so, ideally someone like this would be a potential director of finance somewhere down the line, and it's much easier to be able to do that than to bring somebody in, that wasn't in that job before and didn't know the intricacies of the city. So I think, as we look back from the Great Recession and where we were to where we are, we're still, 15, 20 positions down, I think, from where we were back almost 20 years ago. So, we're doing less with more, and I think that's a good thing, but at the same time, we have to be realistic. I mean, there's only one Dave, there's one Cleve, and sometimes we're asking you to do a lot of things that are just really hard to do and do it with one person. So I think this is a very, this is necessary for us to be able to add this position into it. And so I'm looking forward to casting an aye vote on this.
I would just echo that. I think it's kind of important for us to have somebody who can step in as folks, decide to retire down the road, and we're not, we don't have anybody with institutional knowledge because we don't have any sort of backup that's coming up the ranks behind them. So,
someone want to make a motion?
I will move that we approve the resolution or the salary schedule and job description as listed in the staff report and resolution. All of the above.
I second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Gottberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Yarbrough.
Aye.
Vice Mayor No.
Aye.
Mayor Saragosa.
Aye.
Great. We look forward to having a new assistant finance director.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to item 13, council reports from other agency meetings. We'll start with El Dorado County Transit Authority. That's me. We adopted a new salary schedule, preliminary operating and capital budgets, operating reserve budgets, and more interest to the public is probably we scheduled a workshop for May 4th at noon to discuss short-term transit plans for public transit in the area, so anyone who has input on that are welcome and would like to see that. Next is El Dorado County Transportation Commission. We held a public hearing for public transportation. It was a really short meeting. LAFCO?
Did not meet.
Did not meet? Okay, great. SACOG?
SACOG, we meet next week.
Pioneer?
Pioneer meets next week, but I am still working on the SB 1383 with Pierre Rivas and coinciding with John Heidel of the Supervisors Board.
Great, thank you. Placerville Fire Safe Council, their agenda is so packed. I think they're doing a lot, but the thing I think that is of most interest to the community is they're trying to form neighborhood groups within their FireWise community. Part of keeping their FireWise status and community is being able to report all the work they're doing. So they're looking for people to kind of head up each neighborhood area to organize people and collect all that information and work together. So if anyone's interested in that, please get in touch with the Fire Safe Council. They're looking for people in every neighborhood. City County 2x2 Committee, we did not meet, and Opportunity Knocks.
Yes, so we approved issuing a letter of interest period through April 30th for nonprofits who are interested in grants for to provide homeless diversion services. So if you are a nonprofit interested in doing that, please submit your letter of interest by the end of the month.
Great, thank you. Okay, with that, we'll move on to item 14, requests.
And public comment on item 13.
Oh, public comment for item 13. Does anyone have any comments? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. 14, requests for future agenda items.
I did have something actually on this one, and it came up as we were having discussions here about things, and also how I discovered my business cards had the wrong phone number on it. Because Uncle Fuzzy called me, and we were just kind of talking about what they were, what the group was doing over at the building, the one, I forget the number, on Main Street. They're 1848. Is that the name of the organization? So the one thing I was going to request, and it's not really, is just I was going to invite them to come give a presentation to get a sense of what they're doing and at that building, or some of their activities. I know they have, I think, an event, which is weird because it's in Jackson coming up, but I'm not really sure what they're doing. So that's why I thought it'd be good for the public to know what that organization's doing, and then just to give an idea of what's ahead on that building. So if
I'm happy to invite them to give us a presentation.
Great. And
then I'll reach out to Uncle Fuzzy.
Okay. And one thing I'd like the council to consider is to review our park impact fees. We haven't done that in a while, and we are potentially going to have a lot of development that's going to affect all of our parks and impact them. So I think the last time the council revisited that, we didn't really raise them and didn't get them to where they should be, and just would like you to consider that.
Yeah, I would be. I mean, I know I've used this example in the past, and that is when I was undersecretary. We had consumer affairs under us, and have all the licensing boards, contractor state licensing board, cosmetology, what have you, and sometimes you'd have those commissions that would go like decades or tons of years, and all of a sudden, the people that get their licenses would be facing like a 200% increase or more because they didn't take their medicine, as time went by. So it's a good sense. I mean, no one likes raising fees or doing those things, but eventually the costs catch up to everybody, especially in this, high inflationary time that we live in. So it's probably prudent for us to take a look at that and see where we're at, and then we can make a decision.
Good. Yeah, we've been talking about that internally with staff too, to bring back the master plan for you to review. I'm not sure any update is necessarily needed for it because not a lot has been done, but then bringing the fee study back that was completed as part of that and have you review that and give us direction on it. So we will get that on the agenda. Mr. Zeller and I have already talked about that, so it's in the works.
Great, thank you.
We should probably open that up.
Okay, we'll open number 14 to public comment. Seeing none, we'll move to item 15, City Manager and Staff Reports. 15.1, Receive and File the March 2023 Police Report. Chief Wren.
Good evening. I do want to highlight a couple areas within the report. If you look on page 3 under the title Dispatch, you'll see an increase in calls related to transient incidents or subjects that are involved in some form of activity that during the investigation determined that they were transient. That was not unexpected. That's a direct result of the abatement that occurred on state property up on Upper Broadway. Once when those folks were offered the opportunity to go into the navigation center, there were some that didn't want to engage in services. So that's a result of that issue. Second one is our response time. Our priority one's response time of 3 minutes and 18 seconds, which is absolutely unheard of in our business. And that's a direct result of our patrol teams and our dispatchers working together to get officers on the scene of an incident as expediently as possible. I do want to highlight that we did a 25-year look back, and crime's down in the city of Placerville. It's at an all-time low over that 25-year per capita. What we struggle with the most, and it's not germane just to Placerville, is the perception of crime. All it takes is somebody to get on Facebook and say something, and now it starts to garner traction and become a reality amongst people who really don't take the time to look at data or to speak with some of us who may know what's actually occurring. And I do accept some responsibility in that because I avoid social media at all costs. But I do recognize that we need to do a better job as a police department to highlight our successes and work better to dispel a lot of the rumors that, if left unchecked, become reality. So With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Great, thank you. Questions from the council?
I did have one. Thank you, Chief. I did have one, and this is on the 290 PC sex registrants. I noticed that on the transient ones, there's two that are highlighted as high risk, and I know, again, from my former work, the HRSOs. I mean, those are bad dudes that get that status as HRSOs. My question was, one, do we know who those two HRSOs are? Two, are they do they have ankle monitors, and is that passive, or are they being constantly monitored? And I guess three is there any efforts to try to get those into some kind of address? I mean, I hate to see any of our people that are 290s be transients, but the HRSOs, these are folks, and the way they get for folks to know is high risk means they have a higher tendency to reoffend. And so if you don't know where they're at least if you have an address, you have a better sense of what they're doing and how they're doing it. Them being homeless just creates a much bigger problem, and there's other issues as to why it's hard to find housing as well for them, but that's a whole other issue. So I guess those are my questions on that one, Chief.
Yes, thank you. You'll see under that section that we actually have 2 high risk, 2 above average risk, and 2 at average risk. Out of that 5, we know that 4 are on parole, active parole. They are GPS monitored. 3 of the 5 are currently at the navigation center. So we're hopeful that they're able to engage in the resources that are available through that process. We know all of them. We know who they are. We know them well. One of them in particular, who is a high-risk offender, is suffering from some mental health issues, and he's constantly cutting off his monitor. So that's how we know him. It's like once a week we're getting contacted by parole to go out and pick him up.
And that's not causing flash incarceration anymore to put them back into this because of 47 and everything else?
It's just tough, yeah. It's tough to put people in prison. It's tough to keep them there.
Yeah, it sounds like that's someone that should be in a DHMC facility.
He was in some form of treatment facility down in I believe it was Rancho Cordova, but fell out of the program because I just, in my interactions with him, it leads me to the opinion, not medical based, my disclaimer, that he would be better served in a facility that can care for his needs on an ongoing basis.
Gotcha. Understood. Okay. Thank you, Chief. I appreciate that.
But we do know who they are. We know they're actively monitored by GPS, except for one of them has termed out on his parole. But we know him. We don't have much concern about him.
Okay. That's good. And it's, I got plenty of them living by me off Coloma Street and some of the housing, so it's not a matter of, where they go, but obviously it's better to have a good sense of a permanent location for them. And I would assume they're all county of commitments were here. That's how they ended up in El Dorado County, or
yes,
they can request transfer
you.
here.
I forgot to mention that. Their committal offense was originated out of El Dorado County. However, none of them had previously lived in the city of Placerville.
Okay, so great. Thank you, Chief. Yes.
Okay. Any other questions from the council? No. Okay. We'll open this to public comment.
The chief is right. He understandably doesn't like social media. My excuse is I don't drink or drugs or smoke, and it's mindless escape, not to be taken seriously. But it's a job that you can do, and it's an important job. I'm not sure that most people have any idea about our department, which is absolutely remarkable. I've said this for many years over the course of many officers. During George Floyd's murder and the reaction to it, I'm not sure that local folks understood that we're light years ahead of almost everybody else in a whole bunch of areas. Our officers, every one of them, gets de-escalation training. Not some, all. I've seen it personally in action over the years. It's amazing. As far as diversity, I don't know of anybody around in employment that has as much diversity as our local department, which excites me because I grew up with a grandmother who was here in the 1890s and who talked about the tremendous diversity with a marked smile. There was one officer who speaks Hindi, Urdu, Pashto, and Punjabi, which to me is exciting. So it's a story that you can get at. It's something austere. We see somebody in uniform, we stand back, they have that military bear. Talk to them. They're amazingly friendly people. Big communities have lots of crime. They decide, well, we're going to have a cop on every beat. We already have it. Our officers know the community. They know where the roads are. I don't. I didn't even know my street address. I just say, it's after you get to Ken Collins and before you get to Mike Palmer's, because I didn't need street numbers. So they know the community really well. They're exceptional, and I think that's a story that you can tell that he doesn't need to pat himself on the back. But it's an important story to tell because you name it, chokeholds, we got rid of those a long time ago. They've had body cams long before everybody else, and they updated them last year. So that's a story for you to share with people to get the word out. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirk. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll bring it back. Thank you, Chief. We'll move on to 15.2, receive and file the March Fire Station 25 run report. Chief Cordero.
Good evening, Madam Vice Mayor and Council. Within your report, you'll see the stats for Station 25 and the rest of our units, and you'll notice with Engine 25 they remain consistent with about 300 calls a month. They've been pretty active. For the medic units, with the addition of Medic 49, I'm hopeful that next month you'll see a little bit of a pullback in the call volume with Medic 25 and Medic 28, which were impacted pretty heavily when that unit first shut down. And then just a side note for our department, I think you're probably aware we've been in conversations regarding annexation merger with Diamond Springs for the last few months now, and both of our boards have approved entering into an agreement with Fitch and Associates to complete the feasibility study. Chief Gallagher and I met with LAVCO and our consultant last week, kind of the kickoff meeting for the feasibility study, which is really the initial process. So we'll keep you abreast as we move through that. It's about a 4-month process, and we'll see where we go from there. But with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Great news. Any questions from the council? Nope. Open it to the public. Any questions, comments?
Sue Rodman, Placerville resident, and I needed a burn permit because I had some people coming to do some burning for me for slash and get some tree stuff down that came down in the storms. And so I went online, because that's what I did last year, and it said, you are not within a state responsibility area. Go talk to your local department. So I went down to Station 25, and they said, you can do it online. I said, actually, you can't. I got told I'm not in the state responsibility area as a city resident. So, and it's posted on the door, but I hadn't got to the door yet because the engine was parked up front. So I talked to the guy who was at the fire engine and asked him, can you write me a burn permit? And so he came, looked at the door too, and it says, and by the way, you don't need a burn permit till May 1st. And he kindly said, yeah, but you shouldn't have to come down to get a burn permit on May 1st. And if the state can't get its act together to do the stuff online, we should be able to help you. So come on and we will write you a burn permit. And they did. So that made it so that I could get my stuff done on Monday afternoon, and I was very appreciative and thank them for me for being so friendly and happy to help the public, because as they finished my burn permit, they got a call for a medical emergency to get gone. And so they said, here, sign here so we can go. So I signed my little burn permit, and they gave it to me, and they were gone, and I was gone. And they were very nice about it. Instead of saying, well, you'll just have to wait till May 1st. No, they said, we'll help you.
Great. Thank you, Sue. Any other public comments? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council. Questions, comments? Nope. Okay. We'll move on to 15.3, 2023 Main Street Event Calendar. Mr. Morris.
This is primarily just for your information. Lists the 7 events that will be happening that you have approved for Main Street this coming year. Wagon Train, the Thursday Evening Car Show, Placerville Brew Fest, which was not one that you technically approved, but it's on the same date as one you did. They just changed the name and have kind of shuffled that one for what it is. Oktoberfest, Trick or Treat on Main Street, Festival of Lights, and the Christmas Parade. So all of those are set. We will begin putting this postcard out with the information everywhere so that people know what these events are going forward. So this is just for your information.
Great, thank you. Questions from the council? Open this to public comment, or any questions from the public? Seeing none, we'll bring it back. Move to item 16, upcoming items. We'll let you read those on your own. I must be getting tired. Number 17, we will adjourn this meeting at 7:12. Thank you very much, and we'll see you at the next meeting, April 25th.